Hi, my name is Mati Gelman. I'm a fine art photographer and I'm based in New York City. And my work has been a journey, just like my life has been a journey. I always had a vivid imagination and I was always exploring other worlds, either in my head or in science fiction movies and books, which are my favorite. But I was not always an artist. I actually started in science. I studied chemistry and I had my master's in chemistry, in organic chemistry actually. And I did that for 7 years. So my fascination with how things work, how things combine, and how we as people can put them together was something I always explored and I was always fascinated by, and especially when it comes to the natural world. Since chemistry, we are talking about combining different compounds to create something new that has a new function, something that didn't exist before. And after a while, when I was in science and doing it, I felt something is missing. I needed to explore something more spiritual. So I turned into the arts that were always kind of living inside me. But I decided to take a leap of faith and I picked up a camera and I started taking pictures. And I realized that me taking the pictures was a very technical aspect and I did not really enjoy what I was getting because something was missing in the pictures, or it didn't turn out the way I wanted. I wanted it to mean what I felt and the complexity of what I was feeling. So I find myself taking the pictures apart, cutting them, overexposing them, manipulating them, and all of that digitally. So my process is fully digital. I use Photoshop to basically create collages. I take the photos apart and then I combine them in different ways to create something new with a new function. Kind of like what I was doing in chemistry. I was taking compounds and I was combining them to create something new. And I think this is a good metaphor for my life because I was born in Hungary, and when I was 6 years old, my family moved to Israel, where I grew up, and in 2016, I moved to New York City. So my home is everywhere basically, or nowhere. My life has been immigration, basically twice. I lived in 3 countries, I speak 3 languages, and that's a big part of my identity is parts. And I think that's also how I look at life. I see it in a collage of who we are, of where we are, and how do we feel and how do we connect to our place. Immigrants typically would work very hard to try to fit into the new place that they are in. And this is something I think I express with my work as well. The choice of going deep into the meaning of something and really exploring it, because I need to make it fit. I need to make myself fit. And so to me, it's part of my journey of the dissection of the world and making something brand new. That is also the reason why I'm so attracted to surrealism, because I find the human mind fascinating. I am greatly inspired by masters like Salvador Dali and Rene Magritte, and also a lot of contemporary photographers that use surrealism as a tool to communicate our basically subconscious, our communication with our own subconscious. And it's through art, it's a very good tool to explore our own minds, especially with surrealism, that we can use symbols and talk about meanings of things, or not necessarily talk about. Sometimes I don't want to talk about something. Sometimes I just want to describe what I feel about something. So symbolism, the way it's used in surrealism and the way I prescribe it, is a great tool for me. And I put it in every single image that I make. I make sure that everything that is in the image has a meaning, and there is a reason that it's inside the image, the photograph. And also a lot of things that I take out, because when you take a photo, there are a lot of things I don't want there that have to be there, because we are talking about the physical world and not the internal world. So that's why the post-processing is a very big part of my work. I plan my images before. I have a vision or a story or an inspiration. I put it down. Either I write it down or I sketch it, and then I photograph the scene and all the elements that I know that I'm going to use. But then a very big second part of my process is post-processing, where the image comes together. So this is where I communicate. This is where I want to put the feeling into it. This is where the symbolism has to be stitched together perfectly so that it feels right for me, that I did what I wanted to do. And in this process, the image can still change, because sometimes when I put things together, I see that maybe it's not the best way that my imagination saw it, because now I see it with my eyes as well, and I see, oh, okay, it's going to take a different path, and that's okay, because once you let go of something that you really want it to be that way, it makes it a lot easier on your view of life. And that's something I learned from being an immigrant. I have to let go. And also in this process, what I think and then what I see is not always the same. So I have to let go. And it's part of my journey, and it's part of my process, inevitably, as an artist. Another big part of my work is the natural world, is the connection to nature. I think that is also have to do with my background, how I want to connect to the ground I'm in, how I want to feel the natural world around me and not be disconnected. That said, I think my art is an intersection between technology and nature. I feel like this generation of artists, especially artists that work with technology and the internet, there is a feeling of a disconnect of our generation because of the internet, because the world has opened up so much than what we were able to contain before, that we are looking for something grounding. We are looking to be more in nature. We are looking for either another person to be in our life more permanently, or the disconnection from ourselves, which is a big problem as well in our generation. So it is very important to me to represent the natural world. It is important to me to have my work tangible in real life and not only virtually. And I think it's a big milestone of our generation to try to reconnect with nature and reconnect with the old world, however romantically it's presented in our minds. And that is part of the reason we really like to have a lot of plants in our house. We really like to have pets, connecting back with animals, etc. So the natural world has a very big part in my work. Additionally, I work with dancers because I am fascinated by the human body. They are all over my work. Most of my models are dancers. And the reason is because I love working with my own body. I like to explore the way it feels. And part of it is because I live my own dream of really wanting to be a dancer through other dancers that I photograph, because I could not be a dancer since I have a really problematic back. I have scoliosis. I have other spine disease that is not enabling me to do this hard work. So dancers have always been a vessel that I use to connect to the ideas that I have, to the ground, to our own body, to each other. It represents a great deal of physical endurance that I had in my life, in my journey as an immigrant, but also physically with my own body. So therefore, all of my photographs have people in them. All of my photographs or images represent some sort of a struggle, some sort of a journey towards divinity, some sort of a suspension. My characters tend to be in some state of suspension because it represents change, it represents a path from beginning to an end. It represents a journey, and that is what I am. This is what I was going through, what I am going through, what I will go through, and I also believe that I share that with everybody when I say it, because all of us have bodies and all of us are able to understand how a human being is part of all the surrounding and all of nature. As my future plan, how to grow as an artist, I have a lot of things that I'm experimenting right now in addition to photography. And one of them is trying to learn 3D because I feel like that could really, really benefit my work. And there are a lot of elements that I feel like that created digitally sometimes look more real than if I would photograph them in real life. Or they are unattainable. For example, a planet, I can't really photograph with my camera, so I want to have the ability to create it and represent it in my images like I photographed it. Another big part of my future work is going to be creating photo series of one specific theme and expanding it. I have been doing that in the past, but I have a few new ones that I'm currently working on, in addition to creating images more inspired by the classical surreal style. For example, like in Salvador Dali's images, where we have a lot of elements physically represented in the image, whether it's different characters or whether it's a lot of symbols that are together. I am striving to get there with my new work. I'm striving to put even more elements in one photo so that it really feels like one framed story from beginning to an end, where the viewer can just get lost in everything inside the image and explore what it means and how it connects to the other parts.